segues nicely into our final question. Yes, our final question from Charles Duncan. Hello, Charles. Hi, Ron. I certainly appreciate it, but I found one on eBay. It is quite the read. On another subject I seem to remember for some reason back 35 years ago, but why are number 5s hard to find? In my original collection, I remember being pretty happy to find a fair condition one. If I remember, it has something to do with distribution. Maybe you might recall. And that's when you interject. He's talking about a copy of The Secret History of the Counterfeit Cerebus #1 I had. The print runs of Cerebus are a topic that comes up a lot. I know the circulation numbers were printed in some issues for a while, but everybody wants all the numbers. I'm just throwing it out there. No worries if you don't have the answers. These people are the lovely obsessives we can't live without, but we can try. And that was actually something that I missed last Please Hold for Dave Sim, was Chris Hunwardson had asked basically the same question. What was the circulation on the early issues of Cerebus? And yes, everybody wants all of the numbers. All of the numbers would be a much bigger treasure hunt to take place. The information does exist in the Cerebus archive, but it's a real hunt in the first drawer. Cerebus archive documents 8.5 by 11 and smaller, where there's Denny's order book of invoices to the distributors. So let's just start from the beginning, and I can tell you, okay, these are when you're talking about the first 5 issues. First 5 issues were all 2,000 copies, and I'll qualify that in a minute. But basic bottom line, 2,000 copies on #1 was what we printed. Pre-sold was 500 copies to Harry Krimmer at Now and Then Books, 500 copies to Jim Friel from Big Rapids Distribution in Michigan, who ran into at a convention in Toronto, and he saw Cerebus #1 and said, "I'm interested in this. I would take. I would be happy to take 500 if I could get 500 of these." This was before the book actually went to press. When the book went to press, there were, when Penny and I were at 48 Weaver Street East, in the second floor of the office / residence that existed at that time, that was fictionalized in Jaka's story. I was in the living room, and I had all 2,000 copies of Cerebus #1 had been delivered. A bunch of them were badly printed, and I at some point I'm going to do mock up. This is what the bad printing was. Basically, the worst of it was around Cerebus's hand, where he's holding the sword, where the hand and the sword meet. There was blotching on the black, and the same thing around one of the horns on Cerebus's helmet. And that became obvious when I opened one of the boxes, and I looked at it and I went, "This looks terrible." This, considering what the artwork looks like, and I was closer to the artwork than I was to the printed copies. This was the first time I was seeing the printed copies. This is unacceptable. Denny was at work, but I was working myself into a fever pitch of rage, which I was very good at the time, particularly anything having to do with buy comic books. And so I started trying to figure out, okay, how many of these are any good and how many of these are crap, and separating them into different piles. These are good, these are good, these are good, these are good, these are crap, this one's crap, this one's crap. And it would be across the entire box. That it wasn't like a whole box was bad. It would be half of a box, or 10 of them would suddenly be bad, which was Moyer Press doing the covers. So I was getting really irritated. Didn't you have any quality control? And it's like, well, no, not on 2,000 copies. They weren't making that much money on it. So it was just get them done, get it as close to good as you can, over and done with. While I was separating them and then counted them, and I went, okay, there's 1,000 good copies, so that's good. So I will be able to give Harry his 500 good copies, and we will be able to mail Jim Friel his 500 good copies. The rest of these, Moyer Press is just going to have to eat, and it's going to have to redo the guts, and get the guts reprinted at Fairway Press, and put them together, and satisfy me with 1,000 copies that are as good as the 1,000 good copies. Comic Art Metaphysics being what it is, at that point I got a phone call from Phil Suling, who was phoning. He had just gotten his copy of mock-up of Cerebus #1, and yes, he was interested in carrying Cerebus #1, and he would be interested in taking 1,000 copies. Did I have 1,000 copies of Cerebus #1 to sell it? I'm looking around the living room, and I'm looking at these 1,000 bad copies that were just completely unacceptable and had to go back to the printer. And I'm going, well, he's in Brooklyn. He'll never see a good copy. And I went, yes, Phil, I will be, Mr. Suling, sir, I will be happy to sell you 1,000 copies of Cerebus #1. I'm looking at them right now. And he went, great. And, nice doing business with you. That was our market. As Big Rapids distribution, Now and Then Books, Seagate distribution. So essentially, everybody ordered the same thing on #2, and then ordered the same thing on #3, because the #1s, they weren't selling out, but they were selling fast enough that, okay, well, I want to have #1s to sell people and #2s, so I will stand pat with the order that I had on #1 on #2, and then the same thing with #3, and then the same thing with #4, and then the same thing with #5. Part of that was because it was a bi-monthly comic, and it's, apart from Marvel and DC, nobody was doing a bi-monthly comic. Ground level comics tended to come out, every 6 months, every 8 months if you were lucky, if it was a successful book, sometimes a year. So you had plenty of time to either eat the books or go, I need to get more of these. But on the bi-monthly schedule, it was, okay, I've still got some. I haven't got a lot, but I've still got some. They're not selling like hotcakes, but I'm not eating them. So yeah, give me the same again, give me the same again, give me the same again. When I said that I was going to qualify that, at some point I had a conversation with Harry Kremer. He died in 2002, so we'd be talking about probably late 1990s, and I was talking about the circulation on Cerebus, that the first 5 issues were all 2,000 copy print run. And Harry said, no, you're number 2. Remember on number 2 that there was an overprint on them that, and printers give you a high-low number of 10% margin where they can either underprint by 10% or overprint by 10%. And he said they overprinted on number 2, and you contacted me and said, we've got this many more number 2s. And I forget what it was, but it was proportional to Harry's order. So he was getting 500. He had ordered 500 number 2s, and there was another 100, or there was another 150 or something like that. And I'm going, I don't remember that at all. And he goes, no, you have to remember that it was, you had like, whatever it was, 4 or 5 more boxes, and Harry, I don't really have storage for that many more number 2s. Do you want the number 2s? And he said, yeah, I'm crazy. Harry always said that. Yeah, I'm crazy. Give me the extra number 2s that you got there. They'll sell eventually. And so he's asking about why are number 5s hard to find. And I've definitely heard that. But I've heard the same thing about number 2s. I don't think there's one of the first 5 issues that I haven't heard that this is why you can find all of the other of the first 5 issues, but you can't find number 5. And apart from that qualification from Harry, which I'll take his word for it, that's what happened. No, there's 2,000 copies of the first 5 issues of Cerebus. At that point, once I realized, okay, we're able to keep going, and these guys are buying the same number of each issue over a 6-month period so far, and now a 10-month period. That was when I contacted Mike Friedrich and said, can I get your distributor's list? Figuring that he would go, no, that's privileged information. I can't give you that. And he went, oh, sure, no problem. You got a pen? It's like, if I got a pen, I've got a pen. I've got a pen and a piece of paper. And he just read me the names of all of the distributors that he had for Star Reach at the time, and their address, and the contact name for who he was selling to. And at that point, the circulation went up. I'm not entirely certain by what the circulation went up on number 6, but it went up by 1,000, 2,000. It was maybe not even that, because it was substantial, but it was substantial relative to what we were selling, which was 2,000 copies. So it might even have it might have gone up to 3,000, 3,500. Like Bud Plant was one of them at that point, where I had no awareness of Bud Plant, but suddenly it was, he's not going to take a Phil Suling size quantity, but he was probably at or close to what Harry and Jim Friel were taking.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I was just thinking, Mike Friedrich of Star Reach, who's famous for Star Reach and for passing on Cerebus and ElfQuest in the same month.
Yes. And
I'm sure that the fact that you and the Peonies were successes played into when you asked for the distributor list. No, it's not confidential information. It's, well, hey, I screwed up, but if you guys can, make it to the stars, I will give you all the fuel I can.
Right. which was pretty standard operating procedure. We're all helping each other and all just finding out what is this ground level comics environment made up of. Like a little bit of it was underground because Mike was selling Star Reach and Imagine and the other books that he was doing, Quack, to Last Gasp. Excuse me, speaking of Last Gasp. And as far as I recall, I sent Cerebus number 1 or number 2 or number 5 or one of those to Ron Turner at Last Gasp. And Ron Turner was in the situation of, okay, I'm an underground publisher and an underground distributor. Star Reach. Okay, I'm looking at this Star Reach thing. Well, it doesn't look completely like an underground, but it doesn't look like a Marvel or DC comic completely. Yeah, okay, I'll carry these. And then I think when he got Cerebus in, and it's like, no. Funny Animal Aardvark, no, that's not underground. I don't know what that is, but I'm already sort of watering down my underground brand as far as underground comic fans are concerned. I'm drawing a line under the Aardvark. No, keep your Aardvark comic book for yourself. So it was, and yes, Mike Friedrich. It's these are all guys that he knew just from the Bay Area. These are people that he knew from conventions, and it's like, no, it's not a zero-sum game where if you start selling this Aardvark comic books to these guys, that's going to come off the bottom line on my Star Reach comics. It's like we had no idea why anything was selling or where it was selling. Just that was the problem for whoever was buying them. It was Ron Turner was selling to bookstores and selling to head shops, and head shops were still flourishing at the time. So it was each head shop had their decision to make. It's like, no, as many of these fabulous furry freak brothers as you can get me, and as many Zap comics as you can get me, just back up the truck and dump them into the store. But Star Reach, no, I bought 3 or 4 of these, and they're just sitting there. I don't have any customers for these. Or another head shop would be going, this Imagine thing with the Steve Ditko story. Can I get some more of those? Because I probably got I sold 5 of them, and I've had 10 people come back and ask me for them. Just like the golden age of comics, but on a much smaller scale of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 copies kinds of thing.
Okay.
All right. How about that? It's only 7:30, so it looks like we've got another 2-hour Please Hold for Dave Sims in the can.
I keep thinking that they're going to go back to the 3.5 hours, but I think everybody's like, oh, poor Matt and poor Dave. They have lives. We really shouldn't bother them with stuff. It's like, no, any question I get, I'll send up, and any question you get from me, you'll try to answer to the best of your ability.
Yes, and I keep thinking, it is so much the core Cerebus audience that we're dealing with on Amok and with Please Hold for Dave Sim. I've thought about writing Rich Johnson a fax email for what he's doing now. Cerebus in hell. But you're also the only person that talks about what Dave Sim is doing now of all of the news sites that exist. Have you ever thought about asking a question on Please Hold for Dave Sim? It's here's what Rich Johnson, who is bitterly disappointed in Dave Sim and what Dave Sim is doing to his legacy. Can we talk about this? Can you put that in the form of a question as to boy, if I had Dave Sim in front of me, this is what I'd like to know from him. And it's like, well, I do that once a month. If you're bitterly disappointed in Dave Sim, and you have been at least for the 20 years since the last day concluded, why don't you ask it in the form of a question? Why don't you? I'll be happy to talk about what it is that I'm doing, but it would have to be a question from somebody who thinks in those frames of references of Dave Sim, defend yourself. And it's like, I'll be happy to, but you have to ask me a question about what it is that I'm defending myself on. Okay, say hi to Paula and her tattoos for me, and Bullwinkle and Janice Pearl, and God willing, we'll do this again next month.
Yes, we will. Next month, I'm really looking forward to the June, because it'll be June 1st, which is Bashful Bendow's birthday.
How about that? How about that? Also, Marilyn Monroe's birthday.
Well, at the comic book store that I used to go to, they had one of those laminated calendars where it's giant squares, and you dry erase marker what month it is and the days, and then you wipe it off at the end of the month. And we walked in one day and they said, "What's your birthday?" And my brother goes, "June 1st." They're like, "Oh, we got that one." What about you? What's your birthday? I'm like, "June 11th." They're like, "Oh, good." And they wrote my name on the calendar, and we're like, "What's going on?" "Oh, well, we figured out that there's so many babies, we can have a customer's name on every day of the calendar." And we're like, "What?" And we looked, yeah, they were only missing like 3-4 days. And they were all proud when I walked in because they were really looking for an 11. And I'm going, "You got what? How is this a business? How do you make money?"
Really?
But, when you run a comic book store and you're there all day, you get kind of bored.
That's true. Especially when somebody coming in whose birthday happens to be on the 11th just lights up your world.
And
have a good night, Matt.
You too, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Bye.